Evening, this is the March 20th, 2019 meeting of the Finance Committee. We're starting on time at 7 o'clock. Our agenda tonight, we're going to review and vote on transfer requests. We actually have two transfers, one for the library, which we'll take with their budget, and one within DDIS, which we'll take with their budget, which is agenda item number 3. We'll be looking at Department of Public Services, Public Library, also cable and community television, and let's just say the empire that is now DDIS with the director here, both directors here. So also we'll be looking at the solid waste budget and the zoning board of appeals budget to vote on that tonight, and we'll also be voting on the revised debt management policy and on the revised capital budget portion, which we've discussed over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and the Board of Selectmen's already worked on that. I'm going to open the meeting up with just some brief comments from CFO Ed Kazanovich on the latest on our budget update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I provided several handouts to you. I just want to walk you through those. I provided to you an updated 5-year CIP report, and there was a minor change in the library. The detail was correct, although the summary page did not reflect the detail. For some reason, the formula was disrupted somehow. Anyway, the correction was made, and it didn't change the bottom line total of the library. It was for years FY 22 and 23. It has now been corrected, so it did not change FY 20, the year that is under review right now. In terms of budget summary, I provided a one-sheet recap of where we currently are, based upon the Finance Committee's action to date, as well as some changes that were recently received. We received a reduction in the APATH assessment that we have not voted yet, but I did reduce our recommendation based upon that adjustment in the assessment. We were notified by BayPath in a letter that I received last week. I think there was a drop of about $17,000 in that assessment. So where we are right now, we currently have about $71,800 available. If we were to tax at 2.5, if the budgets as recommended get voted and approved, and there's $71,000 remaining, we would be taxing at a levy rate of about 2.34% out of 2.5%. Now certainly that number is going to move as we move along closer to town meeting and post-town meeting. As you know, we normally are able to reduce that pretty significantly over the years. Just a number of key information we won't know going into town meeting, but certainly we'll know leading into the fall town meeting when we make some adjustments and some additional recommendations. So, Mr. Chairman, that's where we are, and in terms of tonight, the DDIS budget, specifically the Department of Public Health, we made a minor change in the third line item down under Inspector. The previous recommendation was for, let me just get that, $43,297. It was brought to my attention today after a review by Darlene in preparation for tonight that recommendation made by us was understated as a result of an employee who recently earned her 1 year. She's been employed for a year. As a result of that, this individual is due a retro amount going back to December 1st for the amount that the bylaw employees received on July 1. So when that was calculated, that probationary period, the anniversary date was missed, so we're making a slight correction and bringing it in tonight.
Good. That's also reflected in the total revised overall budget?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Any other adjustments at this time, Ed?
No, that's...
Okay. We didn't make any adjustments last week, did we? 2 weeks
The
ago?
week before.
Week before, okay, that's fine. Good. All right, then let's move on with the budgets. Gene Collins is here, Director of Library. Come on up, Gene. We're going to do your transfer first, then I think a quick look at your CIP and then go over your operating budget. Nice to see you, by the way. Happy spring, everybody. First hour of that. Transfer requests tonight is an $8,000 interdepartmental transfer to the programs line from the library associates line. This is to fund additional library programs. This is a fiscal year 19, so end of year we're in right now, change. I'll open it up to any questions and then a comment. Hey, you know what, Gene, I'm sorry. Why don't you tell us what you're trying to do with the programs line?
If I could have 5 minutes or so, I'd kind of like to give you an overview of summary. We're very accountable to the state.
Sure.
And so there's a lot of different places that the money has to go, and it'll kind of help explain my budget too. So if I
Oh,
have a
great,
few
okay.
minutes, I'll go
No, that's
over
fine,
that a little bit.
that's fine.
In terms of libraries, we're part of a consortium. There's 150 libraries, plus or minus a few, in the CBW Mars consortium. We have a lot of compliances. We're in 100% compliance, but there are a lot of things that we have to do with that, which is all fine. It's a benefit to everyone. Basically, though, every library has books. So it's a reciprocity agreement. We lend, last year we lent about 10,000 books and we borrowed about 17,000. So obviously that's a good resource for us. At the end of the day, libraries can't just rely on books. We have to do other things. We can't just wait for people to come in and get books. First of all, a lot of it goes on electronic now, so you have to get your foot traffic in different ways. So for us, and every library kind of figures out what their niche is, ours is programs. Last year we did about 700 programs. About 400 of those were done in-house, meaning we designed them and we did them ourselves, staff. So obviously programs cost a lot of money. The other thing that we focus on a lot is our Museum Pass program, and we have about 46. We have the most robust one in the state, and it's very highly utilized. We had patrons saved over $17,000 by using our Museum Passes. So I'm kind of giving you that overview because some of it goes under different places for the state. So I'm just going to check here to make sure I don't miss anything. We offered 46 passes to our patrons. About 3 years ago, there were only 3. So that's been a major initiative for us to build that resource. That is important because that can be funded through what's called the MAR, the Municipal Appropriation, I always stumble over this, resource. And that's part of the state funding. That's part of the TAMI, which is the Total Appropriated Municipal Income. That's 15% of that. But programs can't be funded through the state through that allocation. So we have to find money in other places for the programs. And that means last year, all of those programs together, the total cost and value, 2 different things, of course, you all know that. But it cost about, in various ways, $49,000 to put on those programs last year. But there was only $4,000 in appropriations. So to break down how we paid for those, there was $4,000 from appropriations, $1,000 from miscellaneous. State aid 2016, 2017, and 2018, that was over $12,000 that we used as state aid. Now, if you don't fund appropriately and your budget isn't appropriate, you don't get state aid. You also can't borrow from other libraries. So that's important that we have everything in the right place. The board oversees the Norma Card Trust Fund. We got almost $3,000 from them. The Cultural Council was $2,500. I started what's called the Educational Auburn Public Library Public Education Series, and that is comprised of people who come in and present very high-quality programs and don't charge the library. And so there's a little, promotional thing on the promos for those. The Friends contribute about $3,000, and this is an important one, and it's intangible. But my staff and this is a very conservative number, the value of what they do for programs is about $16,000. There is no other library that utilizes every staff member in programming, and we do. And that's why we can put on so many programs. We also had some other grants and the general fund, so that value is about $49,000. We don't have the option of not doing programs anymore. That's our niche. We had 71,000 people walk into the library last year, and very slightly under 10,000 people attended our programs. So without those, where I know libraries that their numbers dropped off by 20,000. So you have to find your niche, and then you have to find a way to fund those. So the reason that I am short-staffed, and there was money in the library associate account where that's my request, is to put that into programs. If it's not funded, then I'm not going to not fund the programs, but it will begin to deplete my state aid and we don't get any more for the next year. So to me, that was a good use of the funds. It's still directly serving our patrons and allows us to continue, to fund the programs that we need.
Okay. So the library associates line is that something we should be looking at adjusting to a lower number, moving it to programs for budgeting purposes, or do you not want to go there at this point in time?
I think for this, transferring the 8,000 from library associates to programs would be sufficient at this time.
Okay.
Moving forward, the next fiscal year budget has, everything where it needs to be. I'm asking for 2,000 more for programs, and I have a sufficient, I have the same plan to fund those programs. Obviously, additional money is always welcome, and I can always find a way, to have more programs, but,
Yep.
funds are what they are.
So
At this point, this
just briefly jumping to your budget, you're okay with what's been laid out per account?
For the library associates account, yes, that's fully, that funds the union personnel and includes their step increases and their COLAs.
Okay, that's fine,
It's
and
okay.
you'll weave a web to get the programs funded and paid for, that kind of thing, which we have no problem with transfers like this coming along to us. We prefer them not coming out of library associates, a personnel type account. We understand you've got a unique situation there, and you need a certain level of minimum funding on that, so that's fine.
This year, there's still going to be money left in there, even because I've been short-staffed for various reasons, and then I promoted from within, so I was still short-staffed. So we have the extra money in there.
Problem to have short-term anyways, short-term. I'm going to open up to questions. Thanks, Gene. Any questions on this transfer? Even relative to the budget, we've already kind of opened that up a little bit. Kev?
Just relative to the program, so I see fiscal 18, you had 10,000. Obviously, you've been building up. You went from pretty much non-existent lines in 16 and 17, 10,000 and 18, 4,000 for 19, and then we're here trying to fill some of that back in. Just know what, I understand the 16 and 17, the programs line, correct? $53.50.
So, I think I know where you're going, Kev. So if you look at the actuals for 18, 10,160, 4,000 the current year plus $8,000 transfer would equate to a $12,000 expense if 100% of that is expended. Are you concerned about 20? The level?
No, based on the amount of programs that you're putting on, I want to make sure that we're putting enough in there. So if 18 was 10 and your initial request before you went to the CFO was 8 and you were granted to come before us was 6, I'm just wondering if there's enough there currently. That's kind of where I'm going with it. I'm not so much questioning is there enough? We see, you're putting on all kinds of programs. If that's how you're getting the people in the door, then I want to make sure there's enough in those lines. So.
Because I can draw from a number of other resources, And we want to see if this is sustainable as well, you know, and to build that platform of people who can also, you know, do programs in-house. So I think it's fine for now because we do have other places to draw from.
Thank you.
So I guess from a budgeting perspective, we'll look at this again next year and say, you know what? No, $6,000, I don't care what you say, isn't enough there. Let's budget it, if you're running at 10 grand, let's budget it there and make sure that we're adjusting maybe some of your other accounts to reflect that, and that's part of the annual budget process anyways. Any other questions? Ann, did you have a question?
No, I was going to make a motion to approve the transfer.
Do you have a second?
On the transfer, second.
Any other comments on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Gee, let's stay with the operating budget, and then we'll finish up with the CIP on this. So the 2020 recommendation from town manager is $25,557, which is a 4.14% increase over fiscal 19. I believe your budget was just a little bit higher, initial request on that, some of that relating to the programs line. I'm going to open it up to questions. Any questions on this, Kevin?
Just see in the details as far as the staffing. I see there's a note at the bottom relative to a strategy to increase salaries. And I think in particular to your assistant directors. Obviously, I think when you first came before us, you said the level of education for your those folks at least was you were requesting masters in library science.
Correct.
And I see their salaries are very low. Can you just discuss what that strategy is to get those salaries more in line with, and you just finished telling us that you're doing so many programs in-house and the level of education, how are we going to get these folks up to?
It was a 3-year strategy, so next year would be, well, an additional year next year to get them up close to 50,000. In addition, next year, I plan to make one of the positions an assistant director position. So the other two wouldn't be as high. So I'm going to look at, I needed to determine what that position would look like because I'm still sort of transitioning. So the person kind of in charge of operations would have that person's job / assistant director. So that one would be budgeted a little bit higher, and the others wouldn't have quite as much responsibility. And hopefully, in the next year, those will be up about 50,000, and I think that's appropriate.
Okay. Where did these salaries stand in terms of your surrounding municipalities? I just don't want to see us get to a point, and we'll discuss it when we get to inspectional services, where they had some high qualified people with some great experience who are leaving to go to smaller communities simply for salary. We're taking all of our talent and they were leaving.
I think they're about average. So the town has good benefits. I mean, you look at everything, I guess. They're about average. So I think if the assistant director position can be budgeted at, 55, 56,000, that would be good. And the others around 50. It's competitive. It's not really super high, but it's competitive.
Okay, thank you.
So this year it's still low. However, I do hire on potential. These people came in with no experience, so they also have an opportunity that I'm giving them experience to learn, the positions. Hopefully they'll stay and not go somewhere else. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Gene, 3 years with us now? 4?
About 3.5.
About 3.5. So right around that time, your programs here took off. And I can see it, I hate to say only by the expense, but great job with that. It's nice to see you get your fingerprint on it. I know that we went through, I think, a couple of sort of directives over a brief period of time before you came in, so great job with that. And I hear a lot of
I have
good
to
things.
say, my staff is wonderful. We're short-staffed, but I have a first-rate staff, and they work really well together. And it's very collaborative, and we can get things done. So I have to give a lot of credit to them. So.
Question, can you tell us about the consultant for the library strategic plan?
Yes, that was a request from the Board of Trustees writing the strategic plan. They requested funding in our budget to pay for a consultant, and it's a one-time request. So
What will they be reviewing?
we're started writing the strategic plan. They're looking for somebody to come in and review it all. And there are some board members who don't think we need a consultant. I'm not convinced either, because if you've written a strategic plan before, you can follow. There's some good ones out there. But they wanted to make sure the funds were there if they needed somebody. The Mass Library Services system will provide you with somebody for free anyway, so we do have some resources. So it may or may not be needed, but they wanted to make sure it was in the budget if it was.
That's amazing.
Maybe we'll hear more about that at a future date. Okay, that's fine. Any other questions? All right, we have a request, budget request of $642,357.
Motion to recommend?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, so voted, thank you. Okay, and briefly on the CIP, which is just a couple things on there, and I'll just open it up for any questions. Anything on that? I know we've made a administrative correction on, I'll call it a typo, Ed, right?
It's on the summary.
On the summary only, right. Any questions? No? We good? Very much there. Gene, I will let you go.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Thanks for your time and coming up. All right. Our next set of budgets is under DDIS. Darlene Coyle, the director, is here. Darlene, nice to see you. And
Wait a
Eileen,
minute.
Caleb, what did we miss here?
Cables.
Oh,
correct?
cable? Cable. I can't find cable.
Cables behind the library. Yeah.
You guys relax, we're gonna do cable first, so stay right there. My apologies.
Stay there, that's fine.
Yeah. Here we go. Okay. The 2020 recommendation for the community TV department is $239,256, basically flat funded off of last year. Ed, that being a flat funded, any brief comments on that?
You're referring to what being flat funded?
The budget, operating budget? Cable.
Just give me a second.
Add that to Darlene's Empire.
Huh?
You could add that to Darlene's Empire.
No, we're not gonna do that.
Oh, I don't want cable.
Anything to add on the cable budget, operating budget?
The cable budget?
The community TV, it's
Oh,
what it's called.
I didn't know we were on community TV.
Yeah, we're on community TV. Yeah, we slipped that in while you...
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
No, that was my mistake.
Travel and all.
I was looking for a flat funded budget, I didn't. So, let me just turn to the cable.
Oh, he was speechless. He was speechless. You gotta go to Info Systems, they had the biggest increase, I think that was 25%. Chris, next year maybe? Yeah, I know the right people. Sorry, Ed.
Okay, so, no, we sat down with Chris, this is Chris's request. It is down slightly from current fiscal year. I think there were some minor adjustments within the E&S line items, nothing significant. It meets all of his contractual obligations on the wage side, as well as any contractual obligations he may be obligated to on the equipment side. So I can tell you that we turned a significant profit as a result of some of the prior year cable franchise proceeds that we had before. Trying to think, it was like $300,000 retained earnings. That will be utilized in a warrant article, or a good portion of that, that you will see when the warrant comes before you for the rehab of Gleason, to make that into an additional
Meeting room and studio.
TV chef?
Yeah, that's
No, okay.
So there'll be some cooking instruction, video shows or whatever that Chris is planning on doing. But that's something we can discuss when the warrant comes before you.
Okay.
But in terms of the operational side of the budget, it is a flat-funded budget.
Can you explain what happened with the contractual services Code Red budget line item? I'm sorry, that went up quite a bit. I know it was offset by a contingency reduction, but
That Code Red, I know currently that Chris is paying 50% of the cost of Code Red, and the other 50% we've been getting through a annual MEMA grant. We fully expect that those grants will continue, although we did take a slight cut. I don't expect that level of increase in Code Red to be coming our way. I think in addition to Code Red, there are other contractual services that are a part of that line item.
okay,
Code Red being one of them.
okay. All right, we like flat budgets anyway, so, yeah, that's good. Any other questions?
motion to recommend $239,256.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Thank you. All right. Thanks, Ed. Darlene, sorry to hold you up.
No problem.
Very important stuff, otherwise we're not on TV. Okay. The DDIS department has several divisions. I can't even count that many. I'm going to go to your bottom line first, and then we'll go back to the divisions on this.
Mr. Chairman, do we have any CIP for community cable?
Did you have any CIP, a little bit, or cable? Thanks, Kev. Keep it, yeah.
No cable CIP.
Okay.
All right, I'd keep him under control over there, which, thanks for asking, my apologies. The total DDIS department budget, hope I'm looking at the right line. Got a new number, don't we? Okay, is, I have $634,162, representing a 3.96% increase over the prior year. And having said that, let's go back into the divisions. First one being the Public Health Division. And the total Public Health Division, town manager recommends $244,014, a 3.58% increase, and about $9,500 above department request. I know Ed was going to make some comments on that. There was some things going on with salaries, I think, on this.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
You're going to see a discrepancy between the department request and the town manager's recommendation relative to a number of salary line items. I think Darlene had made a compelling argument during her presentation last year, as well as Caleb, in terms of looking at various wage levels within the Department of DDIS, because we had problem retaining some inspectors and some other key positions within the department. Some adjustments have been made since then. There was an adjustment made in order to hire a inspector in the buildings division. as well as an adjustment for a recently hired planner. Those adjustments were made out of the reserve account. One recently is, I believe last week or the week before, making an adjustment for the town planner. And an adjustment was made for the inspector when hired. I think those funds were transferred from within the department, but the adjustment was made, and that salaries has been carried forward into the FY 2020 budget with adjustments. We also did a set-aside in the salary and wage reserve account with a value between $20,000 and $25,000 as a result of this review. The town manager recently updated the salaries for all of our comps that we typically do to bring that up to speed, but we have not had an opportunity to sit down with Darlene and Caleb and review those and how they compare to the positions within the department. That being said, we are committed to doing that review. We thought it was premature, not being able to do our due diligence in determining what a fair and equitable value is as compared to those comps. Certainly, we know there is still money in the salary and wage reserve account to make those adjustments. We didn't peel that back in the FY 2020 budget in the event that we have to make some adjustments within the department. So that's something we're going to undertake. It is a time-consuming process. I can tell you the town manager and I have been out straight in negotiations, just really have not had time to do a good review of those positions. But during our discussions during the budget review, we had indicated to Darlene and Caleb that we will do a review and make the adjustments if necessary and if required. So we may be back either through a transfer once the determination is made out of the reserve account for the current fiscal year and make the appropriate adjustments in FY 2020 going forward.
Okay. More to follow.
More to follow.
Before any questions after Ed's comments, thank you. Give us an update, please.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Right, nice to see you.
From our visit here last year, we had many discussions about preparing this year's budget, and from last year, let me tell you, we have a lot of good news to share with you. So I think at this time, approximately last year, we were short-staffed, and we are now fully staffed. So thrilled to have all of the seats taken, if you will, and we have a great group going on. In health, we've had a lot of good updates in the past year. The donation box bylaw was passed this past year. We're working on trying to keep the areas in town that those boxes have had problems. We're trying to do a better job with a bylaw in place, and we expect to have some income from that too, some revenue from permits. Building, as I said, we now have the local inspector position filled, and we have started, we're really kind of in the swing of the building module, the permits online. That is going very well, and we are realizing funds that we didn't have before through review fees and so forth. Caleb can expand on that, but we also have 110 inspections coming into compliance, and multifamilies starting to be inspected for the first time. So we're thrilled about that. And there's revenue coming in that front. Planning division, we have a new planner. And he has been with us several months now. He has undertaken a lot already, and we're happy to tell you that we've already had the fee schedule updated. So there's some more in line with other towns in what their fees are, so we've taken a hard look at that. Animal control, we have had a tough year in animal control with a lot of cruelty cases in the past year that put our staff to the test, and they are doing great. We're happy to say that all the cases are either resolved or in resolution, and animals have found their way to a better place and gotten the care that they needed. And we also have a revolving account that we put in that I know you were supportive of, to try to keep so that we don't have to come back for increases to the budget. We have a revolving account in place now so that when people, for example, if a dog's loose and somebody, our animal control picks up the dog, those fees now that somebody would pay to pick up their animal now go into a revolving account, and that helps us with the care of animals that we're required by law to take care of. So that's a really positive action that we've taken. And then economic development, we're thrilled because we now have an economic development coordinator who has been in the role for a year, and she's doing a bang-up job. She meets with businesses, she coordinates our DCG, she's able to attend most of all our new business openings. So we have a presence out in the community, and then we're also engaging into a lot of the roundtables, the business community. She meets with somebody almost daily, so that's really nice. And then she's also working closely with the town manager on some of the reuse of some of the town buildings for housing and other needs that kind of work in conjunction with planning. And then, of course, solid waste. We had a grant position that is coming towards the end of that grant, and we've had a lot of great success with a educational and enforcement position. Basically, this person for the past year has been educating residents on items that shouldn't be placed in the trash or need to be in recycling. Increased education for social media and contamination, and there's been a lot of changes in the solid waste world in the past year and a half. And then we also have, as you'll see as part of the solid waste budget, we have a plan in place to try to increase efficiency in consolidating operations between two departments into one department, into DDIS, where it makes sense. So a lot of good things happening, and I'm really proud to tell you we've done a lot in the past year that we're excited about.
Good, great, thank you. I'm going to go through just to list a couple of the division totals, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. I've got a couple myself, but thanks for going through the overview, that's great. The planning division requests $79,934, which represents a 9.62% increase over prior year, and most of that was in, I believe, in salary. The economic development budget, $55,530, which represents just a $530 increase over prior year. The building and code enforcement division, amount requested $177,010, which is a 2.63% increase over prior year. And let's see, conservation also falls under here, amount requested $14,334, which is pretty much flat funded over prior year. Animal control amount requested. Once again, this does have a revolving account. Probably have a few other ones too, but certainly this one was important to get going last year. Amount requested $63,340, and that's about a $1,500 increase over prior year. We'll get back to the total when we take a vote on this. I'm going to ask just, I think, one question, Ed, and that's actually out to you. The Economic Development Division, the budget was brand new for fiscal 19. Do you know off the top of that how we're doing versus actual on that?
Sure. Trying to find the org here, Mr. Chairman. Just give me a minute. Okay. So are you looking bottom line, Mr. Chairman? or-
I'm just, are we realistic with the budget on that? That was my concern, where we're just listing last year's budget.
Well, the E&S, I can tell you the salary and wages are right to the penny, 23 cents remaining. E&S, a total of $3,000 for the current fiscal year. A year-to-date, we spent $102.20, leaving a balance of $2,897. So certainly there is no concern about FY20 being short. Given the year-to-date actuals that I'm seeing here, there appears to be a significant balance left over. Now, whether, and I see nothing incumbent, now whether there's some obligations against that between now and June 30th, I can't tell by looking at this, but certainly what I'm looking at here versus what is being recommended is the budget is adequate.
All right. The reason why I'm asking is only because for the current year budget, if we need to do a transfer, that's one area I really don't want us to be skimping on in terms of what this position's doing. So I want to make sure that our first guess on a budget was in line with where we're coming in at.
This is a very important position to the town. Certainly, I would agree with that. If additional resources are required, we'd be the first to prioritize that because there is clearly a benefit by promoting the town and trying to foster some development in the commercial industrial aspect.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll open up to questions. Anything? Kev?
Can we just clarify on the town planning division? Previous town planner held the position of town planner and energy manager, and then when he left, he retained energy manager for a period of time. Is that correct?
So the position from last year in the fiscal budget reflected $52,950. That was offset with municipal aggregation money, and so that put the salary together. Mr. Benoit held that position as planner, and then he also had energy manager. Mr. Benoit is now solely the energy manager, and the town planner that was recently hired does town planner functions.
Okay, so energy manager is not listed.
Energy manager now falls under the finance division. Does that answer the question?
That does.
Okay.
I just saw where it was a zero. And the other question I have relative to animal control. Now, the ACO, what, regarding, I mean, that's a 24/7 sort of position. How does, compensated for going out in the wee hours on the weekends? How does that work? Does that come out of backup coverage, or how does that work for?
Sure. So, yes and yes. So that position is 24/7, as many of the positions in DDIS are. And our animal control officer is full-time. So approximately about a year and a half or so ago, we came up with a plan with town administration to try to give some relief to that position because there wasn't any. So, you know, we'd all take turns going to the shelter on the weekend and making sure the animals were taken care of. But now we actually have in the backup coverage, so we have 2 assistant animal control officers that support the full-timer. And so it's basically like an every other weekend stipend. So we have that in place right now. It seems to be working well. Certainly, you know, that's because it's only been in place a year. Obviously, things might change, but right now it seems to be working well, and it does give relief to the full-timer. So the animal control officer does during the week, handles nighttime calls unless there's a need or she has a function or something. But yes, if she's on Monday, she's on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday till Friday, and then we do have somebody that covers on the weekend.
If she's called out in the middle of the night, is she compensated for?
That's her salary.
So that's straight salary. Okay.
Sounds like you don't want that job, Kevin. She's got some volunteer help too, correct? At least with the kennel or the...
We do have the assistants
Yeah.
will provide backup,
Yeah.
and obviously Board of Health provides backup as well as needed.
Okay, good. All right, good question. Any other questions? All right, and we still have a transfer we want to take care of, and then we'll go to the solid waste budget. So for the Department of Development and Special Services, amount requested $634,162, just under a 4% increase over prior year.
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, so voted, thank you. Okay, before we get to solid waste and the CIP, the transfers, this is related to Board of Health in the building. There's 2 transfers here going to the same account, which is an education account. I'll accept a motion to take these 2 as one.
So moved?
Got a second? All in favor? Aye. Aye, opposed, so voted, thank you. The total amount to be transferred is $500, $300 from compliance checks, which would clear that account out. This is to the education account for tuition reimbursement. The second transfer is $200 from the education/building account, also for tuition reimbursement. Can you explain what the transfers are for, Darlene?
Sure. So the recently one of our employees had expressed interest in some class reimbursement, and per the personnel bylaw, we have there's an offering in place for somebody to be able to get tuition reimbursement for a class that is taken that relates to the job. And it's actually the first time that somebody had approached me on it. So in speaking with Julie and Ed, this is something that is supported, and we believe that this will cover the cost for the request. Obviously, any sort of professional development for somebody taking classes is positive.
Absolutely. Good. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add to that, 6.31 of the personnel bylaw allows for a maximum reimbursement of $500 per year, up to $500, and the level of reimbursement is made based upon the grade that the individual gets relative to these educational classes. So an A would be 100% of the $500, a B would be if it's 70%, a 80%, down to 50% for a C. So it is allocated based upon the grade point average received. So I just want to let you know the max is 500. We're not paying $3,000 for an individual to take a class at. It's part of the personnel bylaw definition. So that maximum is $500, and I think that's what Darlene is seeking through this transfer.
So the awkward question is this a reimbursement of a star or an expectation of a star?
Expectation of a
Okay.
star, which I know we'll get.
Okay, great. Any other questions? All right, is there a motion on this?
Motion to recommend, or motion to approve, right?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, so voted, thank you. All right, let's go to the solid waste budget.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
if I may, the Board of Appeals, do you want to do that one?
did I miss it?
That one is...
We'll do that right after.
Okay, sure.
Thanks for the reminder, I would miss it. The solid waste budget for 2020, town manager recommends and department agrees with a budget of $1,111,078. My math had this at a 5% increase over fiscal 19. Ed or Darlene, any highlights on this worth talking about?
Do you want to take it or want me to?
It's a,
I think Ed usually does this.
Okay.
He gets stuck with solid waste.
So currently, we have a part-time solid waste recycling coordinator, or compliance officer. That individual has recently left. Half of that part-time position was funded through more than half. Our share was $3,100. And what was the total grant for, Darlene, do you remember?
30,000.
Excuse me?
30.
So it's a 2-year grant from DEP, which is about to expire next month.
The end of the fiscal year.
So Darlene has requested that a full-time position be funded for that effort through recycling effort, as well as, and she made mention that a consolidation of the administrative aspect of those services is currently underway. It's split and it's very inefficient. A portion of that is being supported through the assessor's office, and a portion of that is currently being supported through Department of Inspectional Services. We believe that we can deliver a better quality of service by having it under one department rather than segmented. People are getting very frustrated because they're being bounced based upon the information that they require. It's just not servicing our residents the way we should be. That being said, that change in administrative support will require a half-time position, and that's what's before you in this budget for FY20. In terms of the solid waste collection, we are under a contract, so those numbers are known. The disposal, on the other hand, we do pay a per ton fee at the wheel. We're basing this based upon the total tonnage that we are expecting based upon a 3-year history. That has gone down as a result of the recycling effort. There is a definite benefit by having that coordinator on board. It means that we're recycling more, we're dumping less at the wheel, we're saving money at the wheel. And not only that, we're getting a cleaner product on the recycling end, because that's becoming problematic as well. A lot of the markets are not taking or if they take product, it's only going to be clean product. And quite honestly, we're a little concerned about what the market is going to bear when we go back out to bid. We're currently not paying for those services, but we have every reason to believe that that may change because the market is changing. A lot of foreign countries that were taking our solid waste have closed their doors. We have no place to put it now. It's building up. It's causing a problem. These are some of the things that we're monitoring, keeping an eye on. The contract for the collection aspect is expiring a year from this June. That's something we will be going out for probably shortly after the 1st of July in order to have something in place for the next fiscal year. Those bids do take time. We don't know how active that is going to be once they go out to bid. Certainly, there are some major players in the area. Whether they're interested in our book of business, only a bid will tell us that. We don't know yet.
And I think further to that part of our solid waste, we tried to bill out fully separately to the taxpayers, correct?
So that's on the expense side. On the revenue side, I can tell you, based upon a recent analysis we did, the general fund is subsidizing that right now. This budget before you relies on an increase in fee to support the total operation of trash on the collection, as well as the disposal side, including admin. So I think this matter is currently going before the Solid Waste Committee this week, next week?
In a week.
Next week, where that information will be known to the members, who will consider a potential fee increase for the upcoming fiscal year. We did increase fee on the local receipt side in anticipation of that for 100% cost recovery. I think right now, my recollection is the general fund is subsidizing this by about $121,000. We haven't had a fee increase in solid waste in 4 years, 6 years. Costs have been escalating ever since that consideration was made. We haven't kept pace, so certainly the taxpayers shouldn't bear the brunt of that. It should be the actual users of service.
So that, on the revenue side, which I apologize, I know we're talking about an expense or a budget here, that's based on the 1.1 million total budget? That's how that would be allocated out. So technically, the solid waste line goes out as a separate fee outside of 2.5.
Yes.
Okay. Just so we're clear on that.
Yeah, we're getting about $1 million a year in trash fee. But we're treating this, we look at this as almost being like an enterprise fund. There are additional support costs above and beyond what is directly appropriated here. For instance, the treasurer's office is collecting money on behalf of this. Probably 15% of what they do is trash related. Same with the assessors, with the stops and starts. So those costs are not reflective here, but we do account for those in determining our fee to recoup 100% of the cost.
Darlene, anything to add for that?
Sure. Just to add just a picture of it, for the grant position that we had for the past year, we were hopeful that by getting that grant for the first time, that we would be able to see some positive results, and we just had a kind of a final review of what this person did. So basically, this person was in the field for 3 days a week. They focused on 3 of the 6 trash routes that we have in town. So it was just 3 days a week. And from the start, from the baseline check, from where we started to where we ended, positive actions realized. So the increase of blue bags, people started using blue bags rather than overload their toter. And as you may remember, last year we increased the blue bag fee, so we're trying to get some more revenue. So if somebody is generating a lot of trash and it's not fitting in the 64-gallon or 35-gallon toter, depending on what size people choose, then anybody who's putting extra trash out will pay for it in the blue bag. So that's one positive spin that we saw. So we're not overloading the toters, we're actually getting some funds for what people are putting by next to the toter. And then also recognizing increasing awareness for recycling. So making sure that people were aware of stuff that plastic bags is probably one of the biggest things. Seeing plastic bags in toters, giving people education about it. We have a whole bunch of education now. We have the website we were able to update. We have a lot of kind of cool video clips, and we did some cable access clips. So those were things that we increased awareness and education just while this person was here, and they had a strong social media presence in the past year, so that was a really good thing too. The realization is that we had 95 less tons of trash from 17 to 18, and so that equated to approximately about $6,500 that we saved for tipping at Wheelabrator. So what we thought would happen from the beginning to what actually did happen, I mean, really, that was just on 3 routes. So we're thinking that if we have somebody 5 days a week and can focus on all the routes, that hopefully that will grow in that area. So this person, will be able to save us on tonnage. And then that relates to the tipping fee, which is $68.18 per ton. So any way that we can try to reduce trash and increase recycling is what we're attempting to do. We want to start somewhere. So there's a lot of changes, but we feel like they're positive changes for the town and for the residents. And then also just a good side note to tell you, we also have a recycling coordinator, Amy Sullivan, who's been fabulous over the past several years. She's helped to help us get more grant money in the recycling dividends program, and so we got $11,000 this year in money to help towards the recycling aspect, so that was very positive too. So I know you're hearing kind of some uncertainty in the solid waste area, and we're not sure what's going to happen, but certainly we're keeping our eye on it closely, and we're trying to get anywhere we can try to make it easier or help the residents in the community and people that are part of the municipal solid waste program. We're doing that.
Okay, great. So the expectation revenue-wise is we're going to about a 10% increase. Right now, I think the bigger gorilla out there is what the next contract's going to be like in a year and a half. And I would be shocked if it's going to be bigger. So we're going to have some increases coming to the townspeople that are paying for their trash services. Multiple increases going on likely in the next few years. Mallory?
Does this budget include like all of the schools and public buildings as well?
Mhm.
Okay. And are there recycling programs within the school? I know growing up we did, all the paper recycling and everything like that, so raising citizens to know when they still live here as adults how to fill their toters? Okay.
So, great question. We do work with Joe Fahey and Mary Ellen Brunel to make sure that the recycling dividends money that we receive, we also have purchased recycling containers for the schools, and we stay in conjunction with them to see what they need. One of the most recent ones was when the new school on West Street went into place. We were able to use some of that money to get all brand-new buckets and recycling containers. So I definitely think that there's, you know, a need for more education, and part of what we'd like this new position to do is also reach out to the schools, because if we can teach the kids, sometimes the kids teach the parents on what goes in the trash, what goes in the recycling, and so we feel like that's a positive spin that we can use this person also to do outreach. The current position that we had was only part-time, and she did a great job. We did some fairs. We definitely had some presence in the community, but there wasn't enough time for that position to be able to do what they had to do out in the field, and also be able to go and do school programs and community programs. We did as much as we could with what limited hours we had.
Be exciting to see the kids learn multi-stream if we have to go to that, huh? Ouch. Kev?
On that, the uncertainty, have we gotten a feel from any other municipalities that have gone out to bid this year or last year, as the environment has started to change, what they've seen in terms of contracts? And the second part to the question is, can you just touch on toters? I know we've talked about who owns the toters and replacement schedule, and they're starting to get the status of those two things.
As far as contracts, we've seen probably in the past year to almost year and a half now, we've seen a lot of concerning things that are happening in other towns, that people that have had contracts in place, there have been some challenges to the contracts regarding increasing fees for recycling because of what's happening in the world for contamination. So markets that used to take recycling no longer take it, or have such strict guidelines that there's just no outlet for it. So as Ed referred, it's just backing up, and then the price of what that commodity goes down. So I can tell you that there have been other towns that we've been in contact and have reached out to us to kind of see how we were handling it. In Auburn, I can tell you we're very fortunate to be in the position that we are, because we do have, we do have the hauler. The hauler is located within Auburn, and the recycling material also stays in Auburn. So it goes, also, everything stays on Hardscrabble Road, if you will. So I think that, location-wise, is an advantage to us. And Wheelabrator, where we tip, is not physically too far away. There are some towns in the, I guess, in the situation where they have to haul it a long way to get to the ultimate disposal, and so that increases traveling cost, fuel. We have the benefits on our side, so those things we don't. They're positive, but I do know, we want to keep our eyes open as to going into the next contract. It is, it's an uncertain market, and the contract is going to be more. And as far as your second question, so with negotiating the contract that we're currently in, I'm happy to tell you we did negotiate to own these toters at the end of this contract. Before that time, they were not. We didn't own them. So we will own the toters that people have. Obviously recognizing that a lot of them are nearing the end of their life from years ago when the program used to be the one toter and the recycling bin. People remember having the bin, and then you'd put the trash in the toter, and you'd have your recycling in the bin. So over the years, we were able to add the two-toter system. So that works with the electronic arm. And how it works now, if somebody has a lid that's broken or the wheel goes bum and you can't use it anymore, they call the town, and then we request for the hauler to replace that. So that seems to work well. We have that built into the contract for a certain number of toters per year, and then past that, obviously there's a charge. So we always ask that people take care of those toters, because ultimately the town would have to pay for replacements. So, we recognize that, and that will be one of the considerations going into the next contract that we'll keep our eye on. Does that answer your question?
The recycling coordinator, Amy Sullivan, I don't see her listed on the budget.
Sure. Amy Sullivan actually is a volunteer.
She's a volunteer.
She works through She works through a program with the Department of Environmental Protection.
Oh, okay.
And it allows a certain number of volunteer hours to be able to assist the town.
Okay, and the next question, you said that between 2017 and 2018, there were 95 less tons of trash that went over to be dumped?
Yes.
And was that about $68 a ton?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm wondering why we have an increase every year in that line item.
Into the disposal?
Yeah.
So we have a contract in place. It is, I believe, a 20-year contract with the Wheelabrator, and they have a increase, an automatic increase each year based upon it's a long formula of the
Regional
CPI.
Northeast CPI index.
Yeah.
Okay. My other question was, so we're going to pay $40,000 now. We have a new position now that you want to add. So when you say the individual who was doing the recycling coordinating went out into the field, what does that mean? Does she just go and check the buckets that people had?
Sure. So that person has duties in the office and then also out in the field. So we have that person will actually follow the Republic trucks on every day that they were here. And so what they're looking for on the routes, whether behind the trucks or getting in front of the trucks, is any concerns that you'd have an overflowing toter or materials that may be not belonging in the correct toters. So they'll use the opportunity to stop. They have a whole bunch of education with them on their person in the vehicle, and then they'll go and actually speak to the residents if they can. If they're not there, they'll leave a card. They'll leave. We're able to get a recycling IQ kit through Department of Environmental Protection with some of our RDP grant funds. So that helped use some materials that are they're uniform, so they're the same around the state. And those help to provide education so that it's the same whether you're in Auburn or Holden.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
I think so. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it. Okay, we have I guess Department Solid Waste request for 2020 of $1,111,078. Do we have a motion?
Motion to recommend.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Thank you. And your last operating budget, Darlene, is Board of Appeals?
Yes, sir.
thought I missed conservation, we already did that one.
We did.
Sure. I requested for the Board of Appeals $13,509, basically flat funded versus the prior year slight increase for the administrative assistant. Questions, comments, recommendation?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go to CIP, see what is there.
Mr. Chairman, one correction. You asked about cable, and I said no.
Yeah,
There is nothing for 2020, but there are items in other future years, so I
okay.
mistakenly said no only because I thought you were referring to 20.
Well, seeing how Chris is locked here until we're done, let's finish up the DDIS and then we'll circle back and keep him happy, which is not easy.
Do you have anything on the capital?
First page, 175.
There we go, jeez. So, nothing in the current year. We have a second-year edition of replace inspectional vehicles. How many do you have?
So we have,
10 or?
we have two vehicles that we're able to purchase. I think this time last year, we were talking about just getting our second vehicle. And then we have one on borrow, from the police department. They had a vehicle that they were not using on a daily basis that we're able to use as needed. So in the CIP budget, we have, starting in 2021, is a replacement vehicle for animal control. We have a vehicle that is nearing the end of its life. We're kind of patching it together with various repairs. So we're hoping that it makes it a little while longer, and that would be for what we have, a 3-year purchase. And then the very first vehicle that we got is going to be 10 years old, starting in 2023.
The new position, what's that person going to use for a vehicle?
So we're hoping that we can stagger it so that that person would start early in the morning, be able to take one of the vehicles, and we may, we're going to see how that works. And certainly, we appreciate all the vehicles we get, but we're kind of starting a small fleet just because we have inspectors that are out all the time.
Okay. Nope, that's good. Any other questions on CIP? Good. Darling, Caleb, thanks. Good to see you guys.
Thank you so
Eileen,
much.
nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for your
Appreciate your
support.
time.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
It's nice visiting you.
So Ed, let's get back to our cable TV equipment here, which I still can't find. Where the heck is it? There it is. Okay. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, Chris. Yeah, come on up. We've got nothing budgeted for the current or for fiscal 2020. And in fiscal 2024, is that the high school broadcast package?
Yes.
And that's $67,000. What's the expectation on what that will do for us? Is that just an upgrade after 20 years?
FY '21?
Yeah.
CIP?
21?
It's high school.
Which one?
School broadcast.
Which is the one in 2024? Is that the broadcast package or the bulletin boards?
Yes, it must be.
I need a
yeah,
roll,
no,
hold on.
it's- Apologize.
High school, hold on, make sure that line, yeah. That's the broadcast package, high school.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just nursing our system along now to try to get to that year.
Okay.
So, the reason you had asked a question about contractual services, code red,
Yes.
why that went up, it wasn't that code red went up. Contractual, code red is within contractual services.
Yeah.
The reason why we moved some funds around within the various line items is we're doing a service, or contract service agreement with the manufacturer of our head end of our broadcast package to try to nurse it along for another year.
Okay. Yeah, and the reason why I brought it up is that was part of the title of the account. Hence my question on that. So can I assume this broadcast package was original equipment when the high school was built?
Yes.
So at that point, it'll be nearly 20 years old. So kind of black and white going to color.
Yeah.
I was going to say 20 years? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. And any other comments on equipment stuff, that kind of thing? I'm not going to ask you about
No.
your kitchen show over at Gleason. It's not going to come up on
exactly sure how
TV.
much that's going to cost yet, so.
No, a great underused facility over at Gleason. Absolutely. So expectation on that is to kind of revamp that up, Ed, and additional
Revamp it up,
meetings.
and it would allow for another meeting room over there, which we are in dire need of. A lot of times, we don't have enough space within this building to accommodate meetings, and sometimes they're held in areas that are not conducive for those type of activities.
Right. Is that going to be television ready over there or not?
We've already got fiber over there.
Okay.
We've already replaced the switch over there this year because of the new security camera. We did that under repair because the old switch had been cannibalized for something else. And it'll have a camera package and an editing live broadcast package just like we have here.
Good. Okay.
And plan is to build a kitchen studio on the main floor, because trying to make the basement handicapped accessible would be even more than we have. And then do cooking shows, have maybe recreation department do cooking programs over there, and the ability, I think you mentioned renting out the space for private functions.
Potentially, I mean, it all depends on utilization of the facility, and it's an option, I think, that we can at
Is
least.
facilities maintenance moved out of there?
Not officially yet. They're still doing some work down there.
Okay.
I think that in about a month, they'll be able to transition.
Securely over there, okay. No, it's a great little piece of land, property, whatever, right, the right situation in there. What a great little asset, so hopefully it's an inexpensive and well-used piece, because I know this room and that room, we could use a lot, so good to hear. Any other questions on the cable TV equipment? Okay, great. That sounds good, thank you, appreciate it. All right, that covers our budgets and CIP for the evening, I think. I seem to have forgotten several. I think we got them all there. Okay, our next agenda item is a vote on the revised debt management policy and on the revised capital budget portion of the overall financial management policies. That's a mouthful. This is just finishing up some house cleaning, right?
That's correct. So we wanted to make note of we wanted them to mirror one another. Some of the language that was incorporated into the actual debt management policy that was approved by this committee. We wanted to fold into the capital budget fund portion of the original financial policy. As you can see, we underlined those changes. for your review. The Board of Selectmen had suggested one of these changes relative to spending sources. So this capital budget amended March 11th, 2019 by the Board of Selectmen will need to be voted by the Finance Committee as well.
Okay, so we are voting on both. We did not vote on one previously that was complete.
You voted on the debt management policy already.
So this
You said
one-
we would have to come back with the other one.
Right, so this one does not need to be voted on, so, all right, then I'll accept a motion on the revised capital budgets portion of the debt management policy as amended March 11, 2019, and approved by the Board of Selectmen.
So moved.
Do a second on that? And I'll open it up for any comments, I'm sorry. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, so voted, thank you. Yeah?
Ed, could you send us this, just email us this policy, with the revision?
Both of them or?
No, this one's all set, but I don't know if, I just wanted to have the whole thing.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that would be a good idea, just so we can have that, that's great. Super, so we don't have any minutes tonight, which is good. Next week is the 27th. We've got the town clerk, we've got elections, school department, and I think we probably, we might as well take a vote on Bay Path. I don't see any reason for John and team to come in unless they had something they wanted to do a show and tell on, which I assume they would have reached out to us already. All right, so if we can add the Bay Path budget, Sharon, in Norfolk, which I'm sure, yeah, that sounds good. So that'll, so we'll be doing basically the schools that affect the Auburn children, town clerk, and elections next week. So any other issues, items, things we might have missed?
Mr. Chairman, one comment. I know there was some confusion on Chris's budget relative to professional services and code red. I'm going to remove the code red and just show professional services.
Good idea. I don't want you to be splitting that out to multiple accounts in there. It doesn't rise
No, it's
to that.
professional services before. We'll leave it as such. I think that may have been an internal note that it was included in there. But I'm just going to keep it professional services.
That's fine. If there isn't anything else, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Thanks. Good night.